Hello guys, and welcome back to another installment of Galley Stories, Stories of the Bering Sea and Beyond. I'm your host, Mark Kaler. And you've probably noticed, for those of you that are avid listeners, we've been away for a little bit for the Christmas break, but we are back, and we're coming back strong. We have our second female ever on the show today, and Jenny Gore Dwyer. Probably recognize the name. She is Sean Dwyer's mother, episode 11. Also, in episode 18, we did the fundraiser in Pat Dwyer's name, which was Jenny's husband. Jenny, how are you today?
I'm doing good, Mark. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to talking with you.
It's going to be great.
I think it's going to be fun.
So when we were talking to Sean, he mentioned that Pat didn't have the commercial fishing background, that it came from your side. So let's go back to where you were born and how things got started for you.
So I was born and raised in Ketchikan, Alaska. I'm the middle daughter of Bob and Eleanor. I have two sisters, Mary, who's my older sister, and Ann, who's my younger sister. So I refer to myself as the neglected middle child. But yeah, we lived in Ketchikan. My first job was at an office supply store, and then I went and graduated to working at a jewelry store, and that was when I was 16. And then I started working at E.C. Phillips on the slime line cleaning fish.
What was your job on the line?
The very first day, my sister Ann and I, we were taken out into the offload area, and we were unloading totes of kings and silvers that were troll caught, and they were big fish. And we were put on the table to unload these totes for two gentlemen that had been working at Phillips for probably 40 years at that time. And they expected their fish right now, and they wanted it laid out in a certain way. And we had a very, very large learning curve that afternoon about hard work and people kind of yelling at you.
These two guys just yell. Were these weren't head and gutted. These were still.
They were gutted.
Okay.
And so what happened was, and they were iced. I mean, so what happened was.
Ice all on the bellies.
Mm-hmm.
And...
So we had to pick them up out of the totes. I mean, bending over, picking up these huge fish and putting them on the table and laying them in a certain way. And then these two gentlemen would finish cleaning them, make sure that they were good for, and then they would fillet them as well. So that first day of work was an eye-opener, going from working at a jewelry store where I was mainly dusting glass counters and selling Hallmark cards, and all of a sudden I was literally face down in
a tote of fish.
A tote of fish, and trying to pull them up and get them on the table. So that was our first day, and apparently we passed the test. And I did that for a little while, and then moved on to the slime line where we clean salmon.
Were you spooning?
So my job, I was a necker.
Oh.
So my job was that the salmon would get headed with the machine, and they would come down the table, and then we would clean the gills off and then make two little slits around the neck. And then you passed it on to the next person, and they would slit the bellies and pull the guts. The secret was, though, that the necker had to do their job just right, or otherwise the guts wouldn't pull out correctly.
Because they come out real nice and clean, actually.
Yep. They come out really clean. But if you're not a good necker, it's really a big problem.
How are you at necking?
I'm pretty good. In fact, I did it earlier this October. I kind of cleaned a salmon from from head to tail. And I gotta say, my necking skills were pretty good
Still pretty good. How long did you stay on the slime line?
I was there for 3 summers.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, were your parents, did they have fishing backgrounds?
My dad and my grandpa back in the day, early days of fishing in Ketchikan, owned a fish trap. And so my dad worked on the fish trap there, and then he also worked on tenders and seiners, moving fish from the fish traps into town.
I don't think we've ever had anybody on the episode that could adequately describe what a fish trap is. Was it a wheel, or can you describe that a little bit? Or?
So they set them up right at the mouths of the rivers, and as the fish go up to spawn, I mean, they swim into this wheel and they turn around and they plop down just
the
where
current is causing the wheel to spin, and then just picks up the fish and dumps them.
Yep, and dumps them, and then they would get loaded into the tenders and taken into town.
Awesome.
So yeah.
So your grandfather owned that. Your dad worked it.
My dad worked it, and he also seined. He was a seiner, ran boats from Seattle to Ketchikan for the canneries too. And my stepdad was a gill netter. He was a gill netter out of Ketchikan. So spent a couple weeks sometime, working with my stepdad, but the slime line was actually a lot more fun than gill netting.
I started on the slime line in 1992.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. It didn't last long, though, because
Yeah.
I was, at that time, young and healthy and could throw a lot of weight, so I didn't last very long on there.
Yeah.
I had to be moving product at that point.
Right. Well, we had it was my sisters and I, and then some friends of ours from our neighborhood, and there were 5, depending on the year, there were between 5 and 7 of us who would get up every morning. We'd have our breakfast. We'd all meet along the way, and we'd walk down to work because we lived right at the top of the hill from E.C. Phillips. So we would just walk down to work, and we were able to walk home for lunch, have lunch, and then walk home for dinner, have dinner, and then if we had to go back, but we had a really great time. I mean, it was just really fun because you were working with your friends, and in the summertime, sometimes there were cute boys from Seattle that would come up and work on the slime line.
Them city boys.
Yeah, and so we had a really good time.
It's great to be able to start that with friends already at your side, but for those new people that are going up too, it's easy to make friends. Right. Because you're all, we got to work 18 hours today.
Exactly.
And you're pushing through, and the guy next to you or the girl next to you is doing the same exact thing. So bonds are built fairly quickly. That 3-month period can feel like 9 years. Right. I mean,
or it can feel like 3 days too.
Yeah. Well, that's a really good time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and so I had, we kind of figured out a system, because if you were a necker all day, I mean, you just got so sore from doing that repetitive motion. So I had a friend of mine that I worked with, and we would switch. And so I'd be the necker, and she'd be the belly slitter and the gut puller. And we'd switch back and forth every half hour or every hour. So we were constantly changing it up. And but at the same time, down the line, there were friends that I went to high school with, and there was always talking and laughing and joking going on. And we actually got in trouble a few times from Cliff Phillips because we were having too much fun, and he didn't really
That's not what
like
we're here
that.
for.
Exactly. So we'd have to tone it down sometimes, but we still worked really hard. We just had fun.
So 3 years doing that. Where did we go from there?
So my older sister Mary, was cooking on a tender at that point. She worked there a couple years and then got a job cooking on a tender. And she decided not to come back one summer, and I said, I'll take the cooking job. And so I started cooking on a tender at the Westward, and we worked out of Foggy Bay, south of Ketchikan, and
You said on the Westward?
Westward. That was the name of the boat.
How big was she?
Oh,
Do you remember?
I want to say maybe 75, 80 feet. She was an old wood schooner. Beautiful boat. I mean, it was, and again, it was another just one of those great jobs where we would leave on Sunday mornings and be back on, well, whenever the closure was, usually on Thursday. So you'd come into town and you'd wait to offload, and maybe you'd have Friday night in town, but then Saturday was filled with buying groceries and getting prepared for the next week. And then you took off I think we usually left at 8 o'clock on Sunday mornings.
That's a lot different than now, because a lot of these tenders, like when Sean goes up, he's gone for 3 months.
Right.
I mean, it's time to go to work, and they don't.
Right.
They're out there constantly.
Yep. But this was, just a different fishery,
Sure.
Gillnet fishery down in southeast.
And a lot of those rivers are like that. They'll have closures, and there's just time.
Yeah.
How long did you do that?
Oh gosh, I want to 3 years probably. I mean,
was there a cute boy from Seattle that came up?
Well, you would run into them out on the fishing grounds for sure.
No, I heard that's where you met Pat. Was tender.
Well,
Or we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not there yet. But yes, he was the cute boy from Seattle.
So
definitely.
cooking on the boats, 4 or 5 guys. I mean, how many people on the boat?
There were 3 guys on that boat.
Okay.
Yeah, and myself.
Did you work the deck too?
Yeah, I was. I wrote weights, and I was the one who did the fish tickets, and if they wanted to be paid in
So you were the
cash.
smart one. Because the smart one handles all that.
Yeah. Well. Okay, I'll take that. So yeah, I mean, I would settle out the fish tickets and write them a check or give them cash, whatever they wanted. I mean, and that was the other thing back in the day. I mean, we had like $10,000 cash in a cash box that I would like sleep with under my mattress.
A lot of it was a cash fishery back then. My second year going up, we were in '93, and I was given a Wells Fargo wrapped bag, and it was just a bag. It wasn't a box; it was a bag. It looked like a mail, like a postal service bag. And they're like, you need to tell the security when you get into the airport that you're carrying cash, because you have to disclose cash over $10,000. Well, this was $50,000.
Holy
and
smokes!
I had literally only worked for the company for 1 year.
Yeah. Whoa.
And I'm thinking, I'm at the airport. Which way do I go? But yeah,
it
was a cash business back then.
Yep.
A lot of it was, because fishermen wanted to sell to the person that had the money ready for them.
Right. And it was good. And Paul Ohashi, who was the guy that I would square up my fish tickets with, there were a few days where he was like, "Yeah, you didn't get it right." But, the fishermen were always good about adjustments. So, but yeah, I mean, I think about that now going, we had like cash money on that boat. And if people knew, well, I'm sure people knew, but it was crazy.
Where did you go from there?
So, after that, I was in college, and I was at Western Washington and Bellingham, and going through there, and then I decided I was going to go to Willamette down in Salem, and because I was going to pursue a political science degree, and they had a really good program there. So anyway, I got really sick the first semester I was there at Willamette, and ended up going home, and then just kind of rethinking what I wanted to do. And the thing that I loved the most was cooking on the boats. So I decided to go to cooking school, and I went to Seattle Central Community College, and it was a 2-year program, but I had a lot of the the prereqs done, so I was able to get through it in a little over a year. And I went home and was cooking in a restaurant at home and kind of waiting.
Was home still Ketchikan?
Ketchikan. Yep. Went back to my mom's house and cooking in a restaurant at that point, waiting for the season to start. And my mom received a phone call from a friend of hers who owned a tender, and he was like, "I know you have a couple girls that cook on boats. I need a cook for the summer. Anybody home?" And my mom said, "Yeah, one of my daughters is here." And so Mom got off the phone and she suggested, which means do it right now, that I call this gentleman back and talk to him. So I went out. His boat was docked about 4 miles out of town. So I went out there and walked on the boat and talked with Bob, and we decided that it would be a good fit. And he's like, "Well, do you want to meet the crew?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I turn around and there's Pat and his brother Phil were on the boat. And, it was just that turning around and I'm going, okay, yeah, well, I can spend the summer on this boat.
I'll cook
definitely. So I know that when you interviewed Sean, Pat and I had a really fun summer that year. We were in and out of Petersburg a lot. That's where we were delivering our fish. And Petersburg is just this great town. And we would go to Keto's Cave and go dancing on the one night that we had off. And when the season got over, Pat was going back to Seattle because that's where he lived. He had a house and a dog. And my sister Mary was in transition and was going to move to Seattle and working for a company down there. So I said, "I'll come down to Seattle with you." And we lived together in this one little tiny bedroom apartment with cockroaches for about 6 months until she took a job back up in Juneau. And at that point, Pat and I were pretty certain, certain that we were going to be a thing for a while. And don't tell my children this, but we moved in together, and
they certainly won't be listening.
No. So and that was the beginning of everything for
an amazing
us.
time. Does that revisiting Petersburg, is that kind of a little magical then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's yes. I told myself I'm not going to cry, but yes, it was just one of those magical times in your life. I mean, everybody has them, I think, at one point. And for both of us, it was just like we were young and we were healthy and we were falling in love, and it
dancing
was dancing and but also working really hard and
What was Pat doing then?
He was engineer.
Okay. Yeah, on the boat. Yeah, but when he got back to Seattle, was he still working then, or did he have all that time to dote on you?
Pat was not a doter. No, he continued working on the boat as well.
So they brought it down. And, okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's always maintenance that needs to be done. And then we decided to buy a boat. We were 25 and 26, and we're like, yeah, we should buy a boat and do this.
Would that be the Jennifer A?
It was actually the St. George. That was our first boat. Mm-hmm.
I knew that.
Yep.
So tell us about this experience.
So, like I said, we were 25 and 26. We had no money. We had no way to get a boat loan at a bank. But Pat's dad worked for a company, and at that point, it was Birkenwald, and it was the largest beer and wine distributorship on the West Coast at that point. And the person who owned it, Mr. Smith, he helped us out, and he helped us get a loan, and we set up terms to. He basically got the loan from the bank, and then we paid him back, and so we bought this boat and got it ready to go tendering. That was what we were going to do with it. And then after we figured we had enough time and got things the way that we wanted it would go crabbing. So we tendered for so we bought the boat in 86. We got married in 87, and Brenna was born in 89. Sean was born in 92, and I got off the boat right around 1990. It was the year of the Exxon oil spill, and okay. I just was like, I can't have.
So were you guys tendering and crabbing then at that point?
We were just tendering. Yep,
okay.
Doing herring. We started in Ketchikan down at the Kashake's herring fishery, and we worked our way up the coast, stopping in Sitka and then Prince William Sound, and then we went over to Bristol Bay, did that, and we worked all the way up to Nome.
So you did the whole herring run, and then you did
and
salmon
then
as well.
we came back down and did salmon in Prince William Sound.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So from 86
till
90 with you.
For me, yeah.
And then Pat continued to stay on the boat.
Pat continued to do it, and at that point I was home with Brenna, and then once Sean was born, then we had the whole loss of the St. George. She went down.
And Pat was home.
Pat was home. Pat had just gotten off. It was our first year crabbing, and Pat had just gotten off the boat. He was going to make that first trip with the guys, but he decided that he just wanted to let the captain do his thing and not have this owner on board looking over his shoulder all the time, and so Pat came home, and on their way out, they were lost.
And still lost.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, 6 people. And yeah, it was horrible. I mean, it was absolutely horrible. Because they were all friends of ours.
Sure.
Everybody who worked on the boat, and they didn't find anything from the boat until 6 months later. They found my survival suit out by St. Paul, and the boat went down probably about a day out of Dutch, and that was all they ever found of the boat. And
safety was different back then too. Now the boats have so many different redundant systems for locating beacons and and notifications. But so at 1990, you're off the boats, more running the numbers and handling the business side of it. So prior to that, do you remember a time when you were out to sea when you were really scared?
Yep.
Can you share that with us?
Yes, I can. We were coming back from tendering herring up in Nome, so we were working our way back up to Seward, and it was we'd gone through Falls Pass. We were starting to come up to head past Kodiak, and I remember, so there used to be a woman named Peggy who would do the weather.
Absolutely.
Yes.
She's talked about a lot on these episodes.
Yes. So it was one of those weather reports where Peggy was saying, out of bays and passes, the wind will be stronger, and mariners take caution. And I never really understood what that meant until one day we were there. And it was crazy because it was this beautiful sunny day. I mean, it was a sunny day, but you would come up to these bays and passes as you're running up the coastline, and you could see like this wall of water that was just kind of being pushed this way, pushed towards the boat. And I looked at that and I was like, what is that? And Pat's like, oh, it's just a little wind and a little water. And I'm going, looks like a lot of wind and a lot of water. And we went through kind of the first squall, and it was one of those where the boat would go down, 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 and then you're thinking, please come up, please come up, please come up, and the nose would start to come up. And it wasn't a back and forth motion. It was just the
up and down,
and the up. And we went through that first one, and I'm like, I don't like that. And there were probably 4 or 5 more situations like that. And we were traveling with a couple other boats, and there was one ahead of us and one behind us. And it was Erling on the Kupranoff, who is an old icicle guy. And he was like, okay, now watch out for this one. And so we would ride into it and thankfully come out on the other side. But I remember thinking, I'm getting my survival suit on, because the way that the boat went down, I mean, I was just petrified. And finally Pat was like, go into the stateroom and just go in and don't look at anything, just ride the boat. And I did that, and it got me through. But I have never been scared like that again, and all the other times that I've been on a boat. But that was very scary.
Well, when you're in the wheelhouse too, the perspective is just...
Right. And we were all in the wheelhouse. I mean, because it was like, okay, this is bad.
Does everybody have their orange bag in their hand?
Not quite, but I was like, I'm putting my suit on. And Pat was like, you don't need your suit. I'm going, I think I need my suit. So
he was calm and mellow? And
yeah,
he was handling it?
Yeah. I mean, he just had a sense about stuff like that he knew.
What about your greatest time at sea?
What would be our greatest time? I think probably just every time that you're coming in to offload. I mean, there's just such, because we would work and we would clean the boat, so it was clean when we got into town. But, especially on the days where it was sunny and you were coming into town and you've got your tanks full of fish and there's that fresh smell in the air, and, the water's coming out of the tanks and kind of spilling out onto the deck. And it was just such a great sense of hard work and accomplishment that just, and I can't explain it, but I think that's what gets into your blood about the fishing industry. It's like, you go out and you work really, really hard and you're successful, and you come into town and you get to offload everything, and it's like, we did it. That was so fun.
You mentioned the scent, right? And so I think everybody has that story, regardless of the industry, what they do for a living. But at some moment, their best moment or their greatest experience, there's a scent involved.
Yep.
And 5 years, 20 years later, you catch that.
Yep. And it's just that coming into town, the anticipation of knowing that you did this great job, and you got money in the tank, and you get to offload, and you get to go out and have a good dinner, and
go dancing,
yeah. We didn't do too much dancing once we had Brenna on board with us, but you
guys were taking the kids up with you.
Well, we did with Brenna, for sure. because she, we were gone for
Working.
6 months. Yeah. So we had her little porta-crib in our stateroom, and so Sean was born right after the St. George sank, and so we had a couple years where we didn't have a boat, and so he, by the time we did have another boat, Pat was working in town, managing. We ended up buying another boat. He worked. After we lost to St. George, he worked like 3 different jobs, and one of them was for Wild Bill, down in the down on the waterfront. They were unloading tugs and barges, and Pat was in charge of unhooking the barges and getting that squared away.
So still by the water.
Yeah, and Bill was his boss, and so that was kind of crazy how it all comes full circle as far as
the industry's small.
Right.
I mean,
right.
The industry's small.
Right.
At least here in our community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so Sean was out on the boat when we would go up to tender in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think he mentioned that he was pretty young when he was first.
He was, yeah. I think the first time he was on board was probably 3 or 4.
What was the boat you bought?
We bought, well, it was called the Golden Star, and it was spelled Gold and then N and then star, and
was there a hyphen in there? Or anything,
there was like
just...
the 2 hyphens in between the ends, and we were like, we don't really like the name of the boat, and Pat wanted to name it, the Big Crab Killer, whatever, some big manly name. And so we went through books in Alaska that referenced Alaska and tried to find a name of a bay or a pass or, something that had meaning for us. And we couldn't really agree on anything. And one day he said, you should come down and look at the boat today. I'm going, ugh. Brenna's got soccer, Sean's got, I can't come down today. I'm like, oh, all right, well, can you come down tomorrow? I said, well, I'll see. So anyway, I end up going down to the boat, and he had renamed the vessel.
He'd already painted it.
He'd already painted it, and, he named it the Jennifer A. And I just was like, oh my God, number 1. That was awesome. But then number 2, how horrible was I, going, no, I can't come down and look at the boat.
I don't want to see that thing.
Yeah.
I was down there last
I
week.
know. You're down there. Why do I need to come down?
It was already pretty unpainted.
Yeah. So, and Pat was not a romantic guy, but that was a big romantic gesture for him. And then when we bought our second boat, after he was diagnosed with his ALS, he renamed it the Brenna A. So after our daughter Brenna. So yeah, he was a sneaky one.
It sounds like it. So let's talk about that a little bit. Obviously, and for our listeners, most of them know who you are. You've listened to Sean's and Pat's. And how did that experience come after the diagnosis? Obviously, that was a shock. But what pushed him to go buy another boat?
I don't know. Well, I do know. I mean, he had always wanted 2 boats. I mean, that was his goal, to have one and then kind of make it successful so we could have another one. And, but he was diagnosed with ALS in June of 2005, and honestly, it took us, Pat and I, a couple months just to digest the news. And we couldn't even talk about it at first literally, we couldn't talk about it because we were speechless and we would just cry. Because we knew what the end was going to be, because there's no treatment. Back then, there's no treatment, no drugs, the only thing you could do was kind of use technology to help keep you alive if you chose that. Pat decided,
or if you could even afford it, right?
Correct. You know, we were lucky. We had insurance, so a lot of stuff was covered by insurance. But it's a horrible disease.
Mm-hmm.
Horrible disease, and you just kind of, I say he melted away. I mean, he slowly melted away because you lose the use of your muscles, and you know, everything in the end, everything had to be done for him. I mean, you know, he lost the use of his arms and his hands, so we had to dress him and we had to feed him, and we had to then when he couldn't walk, we had to you know, move him from the bed to the wheelchair to the shower, and it's just a horrible disease.
Hearing all of his friends talk about him when we did episode 18,
Mm-hmm.
that was hard. And just because you hear about the kind of guy that he was, and he was the fixer, he was the get it done guy.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't have somebody else do it for him. So I can only imagine someone that is that kind of build
Mm-hmm.
would have a really difficult time. It'd be the worst way to go for someone that was so
Yep.
independent and hands-on.
Yep. It was, and he fought every progression to the bitter end. Like when he lost the ability to lose his hands, I mean, he was fighting to the end as to try and feed
It's
himself.
like tape a fork on my hand.
Yes,
and-
exactly.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
exactly. And but once he realized that he couldn't do that anymore, and he was using up so much more energy trying to do it, he would transition and be fine. I mean, he
and
was
go
like,
on to the next fight.
you know what? All right, you got to feed me. All right, whatever. And you know, then when he lost the use of his arms, it was the same way.
Now, I understand he liked his whiskey.
A little bit.
So, well, I'm not saying it
Yeah.
overabundance of it, but
Right.
I heard once that you might have given him some through a feeding tube. Is that...
That's absolutely true. And maybe more than once. No, I mean, the thing about it was that we tried to live our lives as normally as possible. We knew that we were dealing with this horrible thing, and it's like I told the kids, I said, you know, from here on out, we have to just come together and do what we need to do for Dad, and we have to make it work. And that's what we did. And Pat loved beer. And when it got to the point where he couldn't swallow anymore because the muscles, they were too weak to swallow, and he would choke on food and liquids, he got a feeding tube. And, you know,
being the good wife.
you can put beer through a feeding tube, and you can put whiskey through a feeding tube, and so those were things that he enjoyed before ALS, so there was no reason that he couldn't enjoy them after ALS.
Sure.
And we have a really good neighborhood that we live in, and there was you know, the guys in the neighborhood, they would come over at least once a month, sometimes more or less, depending on the progression of the disease that Pat was in. And they would have pizza parties, and you know, they would bring their beer and they would bring their whiskey, and I showed them how to do it, and
And left the room.
I did. I would go downstairs. I couldn't leave the house
It's a
because
guy's time.
yeah, because if Pat needed something, you know, like to go to the bathroom, he wasn't comfortable having his friends do that for him. But so but yeah, I mean, you know, and it was just like, okay, the only rule is he can't have more than 2 beers or more than 2 shots, because then he just got too relaxed and it was really hard for me to move him.
Now, I know that if I didn't change the topic, we would talk about Pat for the remainder of not only this show, but the next 5.
Probably.
Because you can keep going.
Yeah.
But your commercial fishing career did not end then.
No.
So we've got about 5 minutes.
Okay.
So let's go on with that. I
Okay.
mean, not to pull you away from.
Yeah. No. That's a whole nother story. No. So once we bought the boat, Pat was still walking and able to maneuver, and so he was down there. But as his disease progressed, he lost the ability to be able to go on the boats, and that's when Sean came in and kind of became his hands and eyes on the boats.
And Sean was young.
Sean was young. He was in high school. Yeah, and
he's his daddy's boy, though.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He and Brenna was daddy's daughter too.
Oh yeah.
So it was just a really weird time for us all, but Sean would go down and he'd be down in the engine room and he would take video of whatever wasn't working and email it to Pat, and Pat would watch it on the computer and he would say, okay, this is what you need to do, and so then Sean would do it. So it was really a unique time and a unique relationship that they had, and as Sean became the hands-on on the boat, I became kind of more of the paperwork person. Again, Pat right there telling me what to do, which, when you've been married for a while and your husband's telling you what to do, you're kind of going, whatever.
Tell me what you want. I'm going to do it my way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I remember. You think I'm doing it your way.
Yeah. And so I would type emails for Pat and do the book work, and when the boats were up fishing and he wanted to talk to him on the radio, I would hold the mic for him, so he could talk, and but no, I mean, we just kept going. I mean, Pat had a mission, and it was to get the Brenna-A crabbing, and we worked towards that as quickly as we could. But
and did that happen?
Not in his lifetime. Mm-mm.
Actually, no, I know when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about when that happened.
Yeah.
How that happened.
So after Pat passed away. He passed away in June of 2013. We were approached by Discovery Channel, Deadliest Catch, and one of the producers had found my blog. I write a blog, Crabby Mama, which I have not posted in a long time, but I'm like the world's worst blogger. But my New Year's resolution is to get going again. So there will be a new blog soonish.
Yeah, you heard it here, guys.
Soonish.
So a producer read.
So found the blog, read it, called me and left a message on my answering machine at home, and she was like, "Hey Jenny, this is Lisa. Read your blog. We're looking for a new boat. We're interested in your story. We think it'd be a good fit. Give me a call back." And I'm listening to it, going, right. Probably one of my sisters calling me and pranking me or something.
You.
Yeah.
Deadliest Catch calling
yeah.
you.
So I just ignored it. And a couple days later, I received a message through my blog, and then also another message on my answering machine saying, "Jenny, Lisa, really interested in your story. Give me a call." And I'm like, "Oh, all right, I'll give you a call." So I called her, and that was the start of our opportunity to be on the show. And it was crazy because Lisa was like, "Well, where's the boat and where's Sean?" And I said, "Well, they're down in Ketchikan." And she's like, "Okay, I'll fly down this weekend, and we'll do some testing with Sean and with you, and we'll see how you guys are on camera." And I'm going, "Well, they're out tendering. I don't even know if they're going to be in town this weekend. It doesn't really work that way."
Right? It's like Hollywood.
Yeah. So, but as fate would have it, of course, Sean was in town, and Lisa came into town, and Lisa and I were able to meet and talk before Sean got in, and we ended up going out to lunch and talking about what the opportunity was. And it's really crazy because when Pat passed away, at the memorial service, we handed out scallop shells because the St. George was a scallop boat before we bought it, and there were a couple scallop shells that were under the false deck when we took it off to repair it, and so scallop shells kind of became our symbol of, resilience. So we handed scallop shells out to everybody at the funeral and just said, when you're out on the water, take the scallop shell and think of Pat and put it back in the water. And so we're sitting in the restaurant, which, crazily enough, is now the restaurant that became Dwyer's restaurant in Ketchikan. And we're sitting there talking, and I told Sean, I'm like, look at Lisa's necklace. And he was like, yeah, I noticed that. And Lisa's like, what about my necklace?
Scallop.
And yeah, it was a scallop shell necklace.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not kidding. And she's like, that's crazy, because when I was getting ready to come down here this morning, she had just flown in from Anchorage, she said I had 2 necklaces hanging on my mirror, and one was a peace sign and one was scallop shell. And she said, I just felt drawn to the scallop shell and I put it on. And so I'm a sign person. I believe in signs. And so I just thought automatically that was just like the sign from Pat that we should do this. We should go for it. I mean, he did things outside of the box all the time. I mean, he was really creative and really smart. And, this would be a good way to kind of grow the company, but also
platform for ALS.
To raise awareness for ALS.
Which you guys have done. You went way over your 44 minutes. We're not done, though.
Okay, sorry.
But just so you know, I was aiming for 44.
I know.
Which is a good number for us, right?
Yes, 4 and 14 are good numbers for us.
So,
yes.
Where are we going from here?
Well, we are still raising money for ALS Therapy Development Institute, ALS TDI. It's the world's largest ALS-only research lab in the world, and they're located in Boston. And I started with them, I think in 2008. We started raising money for TDI because they're very creative. They're a small lab. If they find something that's working, they're nimble enough that they can change direction and go down that path instead of sticking to a path that might not bring anything to fruition. So we started raising money for TDI, and through the course of the show and Discovery Channel, they've been very, very generous as far as letting us talk about ALS, helping us raise money for ALS. They've donated to ALS research, and all of this money that we have been raising, we now have a drug that is in clinical trial, phase 1.
That just happened
yes,
here recently.
Just happened 2 months ago.
So I was not, I was aware of what ALS was.
Mm-hmm.
I was not affected by it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't in my wheelhouse, as to say, to keep everything
Right,
nautical
right.
as we are here. And guys, sorry we're getting off on this. It's just it's too important to not get off on it. But and then when I had Sean on,
Mm-hmm.
touched me a little bit and decided we had to do a
Right.
fundraiser,
Mm-hmm.
which we did. We raised, I don't even know what the number was.
We raised like $45,000.
It was a lot of...
in one afternoon. I mean, Mark, you did an incredible job.
Nothing about me.
No, you brought everybody together.
But we're going to need to start planning for next year.
Yes.
Or actually this year's.
This year, yes.
Yeah, and it's going to have to be in May.
Few
Because now I
months.
have to go to the Bay.
Yeah. Okay, we can work with May.
We're going to have to work with May.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're definitely going to start planning that and
Mm-hmm.
working that out. But to pull you off ALS TDI, which guys, look it up, ALS TDI, that's the one we support. But what would you suggest for young people looking to get into the commercial fishing industry? Because it was magical for you.
It was.
So how would you suggest they go about it?
Well, I think
Especially young ladies.
right. I think the way to go about it is, I mean, it's harder to get jobs in canneries and cold storage now because it's not like it was. It's not a college student job anymore. It's a different job now. But I think the easiest way to get involved in the industry is to, if you want to, go online and, look at Trident, look at Icicle, look at Alaska General Seafoods, look at Peter Pan, and apply for a job. And that's the way to do it. I mean, everybody wants to jump on a crab boat and have that crab job. Everybody.
That's a tough freaking job.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, like the first like 3 days, I was done. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't done because
Right.
obviously you can't get off.
Right.
But it's a tough
It's
job.
hard. It's hard physically, and I think more so mentally.
I think that some of the summers I spent on a processing boat
Mm-hmm.
were some of the best.
Right.
I mean, the sunsets, the sunrises,
Right. Right.
I mean, besides the fact that you're pulling guts or whatever your job
Right.
is that
Right.
day. Again, those people you build some immediate
Mm-hmm.
friendships with,
Mm-hmm.
and the views in Alaska.
Right.
it's-
Right. And that's kind of like the slime line job now. And that's honestly the best way to get started. Or, if you, yeah, that's the best way to get started. And if you want to get on a crab boat, you have to have some kind of experience.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
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 Yep. All right, so we're way beyond our 44
Sorry.
minutes of time. No, that's great. That's great. Is there anything that you would like to say to wrap this up?
I would
Especially to your kids.
Yes. I would just now you're going to make me cry. But
I'm
first
going
of
for ratings here.
But first of all, I want to say, if you want to learn more about ALS research and the exciting, great news about our drug that we have in clinical trial, go to als.net. You can learn about it. If you're interested in science at all, go to school and become a scientist and help us solve this problem. But go to als.net and you can learn everything you want to know about it. You can go to als.net/Captain Sean, and we have our own little fundraising page there as well. But I think what I want to say to my kids is that I couldn't have gotten through everything that I've been through without them, without you guys, Brenna and Sean, and you had to go through some really, really horrible stuff. You had to see stuff that no child should ever have to witness or do. And I just want you to know that I'm super proud of you guys, and you made life for Dad and I bearable, because we could count on you guys and your love and your sense of humor, and really did get us through a lot. And I also have to say to Sean's wife, Bree, who walked into this, who met Sean up in Dutch Harbor. Similar story. Pat and I met on a boat, and Sean and Bree met on a boat, kind of.
Around a boat.
Around a boat up in Dutch Harbor. She has walked into all of this that has been going on and handled it with grace and has just become a big part of helping us raise awareness and funds for ALS research, and it's just really great. You know, Brenna, Sean, and Bree, I love you guys, and I know Pat and Dad he's super proud of everything that you guys are accomplishing right now.
So Pat wanted 2 boats. How many boats does Sean want?
I told him that's up to him. I'm out. I've done that search where, you know, you have no money and you're looking for quarters under the couch cushion. It's his turn to do that now.
He's gonna do fine.
He'll be fine. And Brenna, our daughter she lives in Montana, and
Equestrian.
She's a horse girl, and she.
I didn't stalk you, Brenna. I just your mom and I are Facebook friends. I see all the posts.
I know. But she lives in Montana. She's a massage therapist, but is going to nursing school, and kind of her legacy as far as Pat's disease is that one of the only things that helped Pat was physical therapy and massage therapy, and Brenna saw that, and
that's where she's going,
and decided that's what she wanted to do. And you know, Pat would just be really, really proud of her for forging her own path through all of this. It's funny how everybody has kind of handled it differently, but both kids have come out on the other side pretty good. I'm really proud of them.
Excellent. I'm sure they're proud of you. Actually, I know for sure Sean is. But,
yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to stop it here, as we've definitely went beyond our. It's easy to do, though, isn't it?
It is, and it's hard when you're a talker.
All right, guys. Well, this has been another installment of Galley Stories, the first one for the year. Reach out to us at galleystories@gmail.com. Questions, comments. We're still looking for more interviewees. So if you're out there listening and are a commercial fisherman and want to share your story, write in, contact us. Follow us on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I thank you guys for listening today.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.